MKY Cab presents Mental Health and Me, Milton Keynes.
Milton Keynes Youth Cabinet ran an election for young people in 2017. In that election, young people were asked what issue was most important to them. Mental health was the second biggest issue for young people. Young people said things like,
"Not only is the management of these illnesses poor, awareness and abilities to recognise these in school is also poor and can lead to the advancement of such illnesses. I myself struggle with social anxiety and an eating disorder, and I'd like there to be a place for me and others who struggle in our society. I have a mental health issue and not a lot is done to help and support me. In school, we're ignored and just have to suffer. I do not think that there is enough help for young people with mental health issues. Often they're passed off as fake, but that just makes them worse until it gets too late."
So Milton Keynes Youth Cabinet created this film to get young people talking about mental health. It's okay to talk about our physical health, and it's okay to talk about our mental health too. We want more young people to talk about mental health and know that it's okay to get help when you realise you need it.
Let's get talking about mental health.
The brain train.
Imagine your brain was a railway track. In a normal brain, the brain train goes at a constant speed, stopping at every station. However, in the brain of a young person with a mental illness, it can speed up or slow down irregularly and skip stops. There is nothing wrong with this. In the brain of some people, the brain train doesn't stop at certain stations, or stays at certain stations longer. Some trains skip social skills stations, some trains skip personal space platform, and some trains skip imagination stop. Does this matter? No.
Morgan's story, retold by Fabio.
Throughout my childhood, I always felt conscious of my appearance and the way that other people saw me. I remember thinking about dieting and wanting to restrict the number of sweet things that I ate. In year 7, I began swimming competitively. I'd always been good at swimming, but I began to progress to a higher level, which meant that I was training more frequently. At one point, I was swimming about 11 hours a week. I was strong and the shape of my body began to change. I developed a broad swimmer's physique, which meant that I was really different to the smaller friends in my group. I felt even more self-conscious and anxious about the clothes that showed off my body. When I turned 14, I realised that I really wasn't enjoying swimming anymore. It felt more like a chore than a hobby, so I quit. The swimming was what kept me healthy. It was my main source of exercise, and because I was doing it so frequently, I ate whatever I wanted when I needed, as I needed to supply myself with the energy for training. But after I quit, I decided that as I wasn't exercising as much anymore, I needed to take my health into my own hands and cut down what I was eating. Initially, I ate healthily. I consumed fewer processed foods, but still allowed myself the occasional treat. Exercised fairly regularly, and was glad to see that my swimmer's physique went away quite quickly. I was in control, or so I thought. But it progressed even further. I cut out pretty much all carbohydrates, sugar and processed foods, eating pretty much the same food at scheduled times every day. It was my so-called healthy, so-called clean eating, and I thought I felt happy that I was fueling myself with healthy, wholesome foods. I exercised every day, walking to and from school, exercising with weights in my room, as well as going to the gym and swimming pool. Soon I began to lose weight faster and dropped clothes sizes. The biggest warning sign for me was when I hit puberty. My hair started falling out, and I was cold all the time. I went to the doctors, and it was only then that they suggested I have an issue with food. I couldn't believe it. I never weighed myself, didn't make myself sick, wouldn't do something like that to myself. I couldn't have an eating disorder. I was healthy, in control. Surely there was a medicine that could stop my hair falling out. But there wasn't. I was wrong. I wasn't healthy. I was malnourished and falling to a dangerously low weight. Something needed to change, quickly. I began seeing my school counsellor and was then referred to CAMS. I was lucky enough to receive an appointment fairly quickly and began seeing a psychiatrist and family therapist. It was a slow process, but I began to reintroduce foods into my diet, exercising less and starting to gain more weight. Things seemed to be getting better, but I still wasn't happy. My diagnosis of an eating disorder had made me feel guilty. I distanced myself from my friends, family, stopped going out of the house, and while my eating became far more balanced, my anxiety only increased. I'd worry about what I and my family were eating, situations I couldn't control, schoolwork and exams. So I stopped seeing the family therapist and was referred to a psychologist who helped me challenge my worries and tackle the issues that I had. This helped me immensely, and I began to regain my confidence. I'm now, 3.5 years later, able to say that thanks to the support I received and my own hard work, I now eat a balanced diet and am much happier. I've regained my social life and my health is back to normal. I'm a healthy weight, I have lots of energy, and I'm due to be discharged from CAMHS. I want anyone hearing this to know that if you ever feel as if your relationship with food or exercise is becoming unhealthy, that you're not alone. You have no reason to feel guilty, and the support is available to you. Please seek the help. I know that I'd not be the person I am today had I not willingly asked for the support that I did. You can and most definitely will get better. If I can do it, then so can you.
Taylor's story, retold by Abby Jane.
I would say that my mental health started to deteriorate a couple of years ago. I became distant, not really wanting to do things I usually love to do. I would sit in my bedroom for hours on end, just laying there in the darkness, not feeling anything. No emotions. Nothing really. I would often hear people shouting my name or talking, but I thought it was normal, maybe a hormonal thing. It became apparent that it wasn't normal when I started to see things. I started off just seeing black shadows, but over time it became black figures. There were 2 of them, a lady dressed in all black with a black veil covering her face, and stood next to her was a young boy, also wearing black. Sometimes I would see the lady or just the boy in the hallway of my room. I would feel very low in myself. There were days where I didn't want to talk to anyone and often became emotional and cried over the smallest of things. Some days I would miss school because I just didn't feel emotionally ready. One day I felt really low and told my mum everything. A couple of days later we went to the doctors. They referred me to CAMHS. I went to a screening so that they could see how I felt and I could get a feel of what they were going to help me through. During my screening I was asked a couple of questions like, how would I rate my moods out of 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest? And a few weeks after the screening, I went to my first CAMHS appointment where I explained everything I had been feeling. Soon after that, I was told that I had psychosis and depression. My therapist then explained to me what both of them meant, and I was given some leaflets about them. I was also asked if I wanted to go on medication for them, but mainly the psychosis, because at that point that was my biggest factor of how I felt. I was happy to do anything as long as it helped me. I was given medication for the psychosis and for the depression. However, after a few months of being on them, I started to feel worse and worse. During this time, my therapist suggested I do cognitive behavioural therapy. However, I didn't feel like this helped after a few sessions. I felt that going through this treatment was a little stressful due to it all being a brand new experience. But I kept going as I thought it would help me in the long term. My treatment was important to me, as I desperately wanted to get back to my old self. Whenever I would relapse, CAMHS was always there for me. However, if CAMHS wasn't there to support me through all of this, I believe that my mental state would have severely deteriorated, worse than it has. But I've now been discharged from CAMHS and my mental state has improved massively. I no longer need therapy or medication.
Charlie's story, retold by Nicole.
I noticed my depression at age 11, but upon reflection with my parents, it started to manifest at age 8, an astonishingly young age. My suicidal intentions, low self-esteem, self-harming behaviour, it started to occur halfway between year 7. So did the voices. I can't remember exactly how it started. I was brought up in a Christian school, but I was always an atheist since I was old enough to decide. But overnight I became intensely religious. I believe I was special, the only one, the chosen one. No one could convince me otherwise. I would hear God's voice regularly, reinforcing the fact that I had a special mission. I was beautiful, so special, so clever, so divine. All I needed to do was commit suicide. Then I would be with him in heaven. I told him I was scared. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to die. Couldn't he just do it with his powers? He became increasingly angry. And just hours of hearing his voice urging me to do it. This episode lasted about 2 years. No intervention from my religious family, who were delighted with my new faith. The end of the episode occurred after a long, emotional, charged conversation with this voice, where I grew intensively angry at him, making me miserable. I ended up banishing him from my consciousness and became a firm atheist, just to spite him. At age 13, I was committed to CAMS after going to the GP suffering from insomnia. I wasn't sleeping a day after day due to extreme stress, fear of the dark, and the horrific monsters. The worst one was the crawling lady. A grey, scaly, twisted creature with no face. She lived underneath my desk. She whispered in a raspy voice that she was going to eat my skin. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream, because then she would get me. I just had to stay still. A feeling of emptiness, suicidal intentions, intense anxiety, and detachment were constant. Never alleviating, but I had another episode at age 14. People around me were being replaced by an evil thing. This became a common theme for my later episodes. CAMS eventually had to discharge me. They couldn't afford to pay for my treatment anymore. After overdosing of the antidepressants, voices became constant for me. But this time I was aware of the abnormal. I spoke to my mum about it. My mum took me back to CAMS, explaining my symptoms. Voices are still daily things for me, and sometimes I was very much struggling with them. But reassurance of my psychologist that it is either a cry for attention, a phase. I live my life with various levels of success. I can only hope fades with time.
Why is it important for young people to talk about mental health?
1 in 10 children and young people have a mental health condition. That's around 3 in every classroom. 1 in 4 people with acute mental health problems don't get seen by a professional. 96% of students deal with exam stress and anxiety, with 59% feeling pressure from their parents to do well, and 64% saying they have never received any support in dealing with exams.
Talk about the issues. Talk about mental health. It's okay to talk about your feelings. How can you help yourself have positive mental health?
There are things you can do to help yourself become stronger and more resilient, promoting personal positivity. Keep active and get your body moving. Keep your mind active, practice problem-solving games. Talk to people that you trust. Acknowledge your achievements and embrace them. Join youth groups and be social. Do things you enjoy. Talk to your friends, don't isolate yourself. Talk to your parents or carers and let them know how you feel. Be mindful and be in touch with your inner self. Tell us a little bit about your story.
When I was young, I was going to school, living fine, well, generally quite happy. However, things changed over time. I stopped going to the gym and I noticed that I was reducing my food intake, so I wasn't eating properly. Through this, over time, it became anorexia. It was really hard and very difficult because I thought I wasn't alone. I was in control of my eating and it was very difficult.
How hard was it for you to get help?
It was quite hard to get help. It was only until I was at rock bottom where actually I wanted to help myself. It was only until I couldn't go to work, lost my driving licence, that I needed to sort myself out. And I knew I wasn't in it alone. I knew I had family, friends, support around me to get where I needed to be, to a much healthier, better state mentally and physically.
What things did you do that supported your mental health?
Things that supported my mental health and well-being were my family, friends and support around me. I also attend a regular self-support group, and this is based in Stony Stratford. This is Balanced MK, and this also helps others as well as myself with any type of eating disorder.
If you didn't get help, what do you think might have happened?
If I didn't get help, quite frankly, I don't think I'd be sitting here today. I probably would have died. I had suicidal thoughts, depression, and I didn't want to be here.
What tips would you give to young people?
Now, as a recovered adult, I think it's important to seek help, but also you're not in it alone. You're not on your own. There's people there that are there to help you.